My name is Aisha, and I don't go to sleep in the dark anymore. I used to love winter school trips. They broke up the routine. Same faces, same classrooms, same fluorescent lights humming above our heads. The camp that year was in the hills 3 hours outside the city. Pine trees, frost on the ground, our breath clouding in front of us while teachers shouted about roll call and safety rules. It felt like we were stepping out of our lives for a little while. We were assigned cabins, 4 girls in each. Mine had 2 of my friends, Sana and Hira, and 1 girl I didn't know well, Reina. I'd seen her in the corridors before. She was one of those kids who just blended into the background. Always there, never speaking much. She wasn't bullied, exactly, just ignored. Thin, pale, long black hair that looked like it had never seen a hairbrush. When the teacher called out, "Reina will be with you 3, I remember thinking, good, at least she won't be alone. The cabin itself smelled like damp wood and old blankets. 2 bunk beds pushed against the walls. A single narrow window that showed nothing but trees and a sliver of sky. At night, the wind would slide through the cracks and make the curtains sway like something breathing. We dragged our suitcases in, laughing, already making TikToks about camp life. Reina came in last, carrying a small duffel bag that looked too light, like there wasn't much in it. She stood by the door, watching us with this fixed, polite smile on her face. "Hi, I'm Aisha," I said, trying to be nice. "You can take the top bunk if you want." She nodded, smile still there. It didn't move. It didn't widen or soften. Just a curved line, stretched across her face, teeth barely visible. Her eyes, that's what I remember most. They looked tired and wide at the same time, like she'd been awake for days. She didn't say anything, just climbed up to the top bunk silently, that thin smile following her. We joked about it after lights out. "What's with your new roommate?" Sana whispered from the bunk across. "She's probably shy," I said. "Yeah, but why does she smile like that?" Hira muttered. "Like the dentist told her never to stop." We stifled our giggles. Above me, the springs of the top bunk creaked slightly. I remember staring at the underside of her mattress, wondering if she could hear us, and feeling suddenly guilty. The first 2 days passed normally. Hikes, team-building games, awful camp food that tasted like boiled cardboard. At night, the cabin was freezing. Our breath fogged in the air. My nose felt numb. The heaters barely worked, and the blankets smelled like they'd been stored in a wet basement. Reina didn't talk much. She'd be there, sitting on her bunk with her hands folded in her lap, that same faint smile on her lips, watching us scroll on our phones and complain about the Wi-Fi. When someone spoke directly to her, she'd respond in short sentences, always polite, always whisper quiet. But at night, when the lights were out, I started to notice things. The first time, I woke up because I thought someone had called my name. Aisha. It was so soft I wasn't even sure I heard it. I opened my eyes to blackness and that thin strip of window showing the faint outline of trees. The cabin was full of our breathing, the slow, deep rhythm of sleep. I checked my phone. 3:17 a.m. My throat felt dry. I turned in my sleeping bag, listening. The wood creaked. Wind sighed past the window. And then I realized something. The bed above me wasn't creaking. It wasn't moving at all. I frowned and rolled onto my back, staring up. Normally, I could hear the tiny noises of someone shifting even if they were asleep. But the silence from above was heavy, intentional somehow. I told myself I was being stupid. Probably she was just a very still sleeper. The second night, I woke up again around the same time. No voice this time, just a feeling, like someone was staring at me. The air felt wrong, colder, tighter. My heartbeat sounded too loud inside my chest. For a minute, I lay still, eyes shut, pretending to be asleep, because some instinct deep inside me said don't look. But curiosity is stronger than fear when you're 16 and think nothing truly bad can happen to you. I opened my eyes. At first, I thought I was dreaming. The room looked different somehow. The shapes of the bunk beds were all there, vague in the moonlight leaking around the curtain. I could see Hira's messy hair hanging over the mattress across from me, the rusted metal of the heater, our bags piled by the door. Then my eyes adjusted, and I saw her. Reina wasn't in her bed. She was on the floor. She sat cross-legged near the far wall, back toward us, facing the wooden boards. She was perfectly still, her hair hanging straight down her back, the thin shoulders like two sharp points beneath her t-shirt. I don't know how long I watched her. The seconds stretched. The cabin felt impossibly quiet, except for this faint, strange sound, like a soft, rhythmic scratching. I thought it was mice at first. Then I realized it was coming from where she sat. My mouth went dry. "Reina," I whispered. For a moment, nothing changed. The scratching continued, slow and steady. Then her head snapped around. I don't have better words for it. She didn't turn. She snapped, like someone had grabbed her chin and twisted too fast. Her body stayed facing the wall, but her neck rotated, her face suddenly visible in the pale light. And she was smiling. Not the small, awkward smile she wore during the day. This was wider, stretched. The skin around her mouth looked too tight, like something was pulling from the inside. Her lips were trembling slightly from the strain, but the smile stayed. Her eyes locked onto mine, wide, unblinking. "You're awake too?" she whispered. Her voice was soft, but there was a strange lilt to it, as if this was the answer she'd been waiting for, all night, all week, forever. My body went rigid, couldn't look away. It felt like the air between us had thickened, pressing on my chest. "What are you doing?" I managed to say. She didn't answer. Slowly, too slowly, her head turned back to the wall. The scratching resumed, this slow, deliberate drag of something sharp over wood. I wanted to scream for Sana, for anyone, but the sound stuck in my throat. My fingers dug into my sleeping bag until my nails hurt. Every part of me wanted to get up, cross the room and stop her, shake her, ask her what she was doing, why she was looking at me like that. Instead, I lay there and counted my breaths until the darkness around her seemed to grow thicker and thicker, like it was swallowing her outline. At some point, I must have passed out from exhaustion because the next thing I remember is sunlight. Morning. Sana complaining about the cold. Hira hunting for her socks. The usual chaos of getting ready. For a moment, I thought I'd imagined it. A weird dream. Camp does that to people. Then I sat up and looked at the top bunk. It was empty. The blanket folded. The pillow neat. "Where's Reina?" I asked. "Who?" Sana was halfway through brushing her hair. "Your roommate," Hira said, rolling her eyes. "Probably in the bathroom." She wasn't. She wasn't at breakfast either. By midday, the teachers were asking everyone if they'd seen her. They checked the hiking trails, the lake, the boathouse. The police were called. Our phones were confiscated to avoid spreading panic. We were sent back to our cabins and told to stay put. I went straight to that wall. In the bright lunchtime light, for the first time, I saw what she'd been doing. Scratch marks covered the wood. Not random, patterned. Layer upon layer of shallow lines, dug into the paneling like someone had spent hours, days, wearing away the surface. First, they looked like nothing. Then my brain adjusted and the shapes resolved. It was my name, written over and over in jagged, horizontal lines. Aisha, Aisha, Aisha. Some of them were faint, barely there. Some were deeper. The wood splintered at the edges, as if she'd pressed so hard her fingers bled. I could see tiny dark stains in the grooves. My legs went weak. My hand drifted up, fingers hovering just above the marks. The wood felt colder there, as if the air couldn't warm it. Behind me, a teacher's voice faltered. "What is that?" I didn't answer. I was remembering the way her head had snapped toward me, the way she'd whispered, "You're awake too?" Like we were in on something together, like I just joined her in whatever she'd been doing. They searched for her all day. Heat sensors, dogs, volunteers. Winter turned the forest into a maze of gray trunks and dead leaves. The sun dipped early, leaving long shadows between the cabins. They never found her. By the time we were sent home, the adults had all switched to the same controlled tone, the one people use when they're trying to talk you out of being afraid. "She probably got lost," one teacher said. "She'll turn up. The police are doing everything they can." They put blankets over the wall in our cabin. Nobody was supposed to see what she'd scratched there. Of course I saw. I close my eyes and I still see it. It's been 3 years since that camp. I don't sleep in the dark anymore. I leave my bedside lamp on, no matter how many times my parents complain about the electricity bill. I keep my bed pushed against a wall, so nothing can sit behind me while I sleep. And the thing I've never told anyone is this. The scratches followed me home. Not literally, obviously. The camp cabins are still up there in the hills, probably locked up and rotting by now. But 2 months after we came back, I woke up one night to this faint sound. A soft, slow scraping. Not loud enough to wake anyone else. My heart was pounding before I was even fully awake. I knew that sound. It had been waiting for me. I turned on my lamp. There, on the wall beside my bed, just above the height of my pillow, were 3 fresh marks. Light, shaky, as if someone or something had tested the surface. Not deep enough to be accidental. Not placed where a chair or table could have done it. 3 thin horizontal lines. The next night there were more. Over weeks the patch grew. I covered it with posters, then moved my furniture to hide it. I painted over it once, twice. It doesn't matter. Every few nights, I hear that soft, deliberate scratching again, right next to my head. Sometimes, when I wake up too fast, I swear I catch the faint smell of the cabin. Damp wood, old blankets, cold air. I've stopped showing anyone the wall. No one else hears it. No one else needs to know that under the newest layer of paint, beneath the posters and furniture, the same pattern is emerging. Line by line, letter by letter. My name, over and over. And sometimes, when the scratching pauses, I feel it, that sensation of being watched. Like someone sitting close by, cross-legged on the floor, face turned toward the wall, waiting patiently for me to wake up again. Just so she can say, in that same soft voice, "You're awake too?" My name is Zane, and I can't look at bus windows anymore. I used to like the ride to school. It was the only time of day that felt in between. Not quite home, not quite school. Just this metal box rolling through half-awake streets. Everyone yawning, scrolling, or sleeping with their foreheads smeared against the glass. Our route was always the same. Down the main road, past the old textile mill that smelled like wet dust, over the narrow bridge where the river looked black and lazy in the mornings. Same driver, same faces, same arguments over who stole whose seat. Then, one damp October morning, she got on. We were halfway through the route when the bus hissed to a stop earlier than usual. I remember the sound of the doors folding open and the cold air sliding in, carrying the smell of wet pavement and exhaust. A teacher stood outside with a girl I'd never seen before. She had a backpack clutched so tight her knuckles were white, hood up despite the mild drizzle, black hair falling over her cheeks. "This is Hira," the teacher announced, scanning the bus. "She's new. Make space for her, please." No one moved at first. Then the bus lurched, and people shuffled grudgingly inward. I was sitting alone near the middle, headphones around my neck, window fogged with our collective breathing. Hira stepped on, her shoes squeaking on the rubber floor, and the moment she crossed the threshold, the bus felt different, quieter. She didn't look at anyone when she walked down the aisle. Her eyes flickered over the seats, but not like she was searching for a friendly face. It was more like she was counting something. She took a seat near the back, alone, pressed herself against the window and stared out at the gray morning. A few minutes later, it started. I felt the bus shudder as it hit a pothole, the engine humming under my feet. Kids talked over each other. Someone played a game loudly without headphones. The driver cursed at a motorbike that cut in front. Normal noise, but underneath it, something soft. A faint squeak, like skin dragging across glass. I turned around. Hira's seat was maybe 5 rows behind mine. Her head was slightly tilted, breath puffing faintly against the window. Her hand moved slowly, finger pressed into the foggy condensation, drawing circles. At first I thought she was just doing the usual bored kid thing. When windows fog up, everyone writes something. Hearts, names, random shapes. But she wasn't doodling randomly. Her movements were deliberate, almost methodical. circle, then another inside it, then a tiny dot in the center. Again, again. By the time we reached school, the entire window beside her was filled. Layer upon layer of circles, all inside each other, all staring in the same direction. As we filed off the bus, someone laughed. "Yo, she's messed up the whole glass." "Freak," someone else muttered. Kira didn't react. She just kept her hood up and walked toward the school building, shoulders hunched, leaving that window full of foggy shapes behind her. I should have forgotten about it. I didn't. The next day, I watched for her. She got on at the same stop, same teacher standing awkwardly behind her like she was escorting a prisoner. Same hood, same quiet. She walked past my seat, and for a second, our eyes met. They were darker than I expected. Not the color, dark like a lack of something. Like someone had turned the brightness down behind them. She sat in the same place as before. The moment her shoulder touched the glass, her finger lifted. Circle, circle inside it. Dot. I twisted in my seat and tried to see them properly this time. The bus jolted, but she never slipped. Her finger cut through the condensation with impossible precision. No hesitation, no smudging. Up close, they didn't look like circles anymore. They looked like eyes. Hundreds of them. Lids, irises, pupils. Distorted a little by the damp glass, but unmistakable. Every single one of them oriented toward the interior of the bus. Toward us. I don't know what made me move. Maybe boredom. Maybe curiosity. Maybe the way my neck felt prickly, like someone was staring at me from behind, even when I tried to look forward. I stood up as the bus turned onto the main road and walked down the aisle, pretending I was heading to talk to someone at the back. My hands skimmed seat back, sticky with years of grime and spilled juice. I stopped beside her. Up close, the window looked worse. The eyes overlapped, some smaller than my thumbnail, some wide and smeared at the edges, but all of them layered on top of each other like a crowd pressing against glass. My own reflection shimmered among them, pale and stretched. "What are you drawing?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She didn't look at me. Her finger traced another eye, slow and careful. "They're not drawings." "What are they, then?" She finished the line, dotting the center with a tiny push that made the glass squeak. The condensation around her skin cleared slightly with each pass, then fogged back over, making the eyes look like they were blinking. "I see everyone," she whispered. Something in her tone made the hairs on my arms rise. Not the words themselves, but the way she said them. Not bragging, not joking, just stating a fact. "Okay," I said, forcing a laugh. "That's creepy." Her finger stopped mid-stroke. Slowly, her head turned. Those dark, dimmed eyes slid to meet mine. "I see you too," she said softly. "Even when you're not here." The bus jolted as we hit the bridge, my shoulder bumping the seat. I laughed again because what else do you do? "Yeah, sure. Psychic or something." Her expression didn't change. Her mouth didn't curl into a smile or a frown. For a moment, I had the strange sense that she didn't quite understand what I'd said. That words were coming in and being processed somewhere else, somewhere far away. Then she turned back to the window and kept drawing. That night, I woke to tapping. You know that sound when a branch hits the window in a storm? It wasn't that. It was too precise, too rhythmic. Tap, 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 like someone with a bare finger, impatiently asking to be let in. My room was dark, except for the thin stripe of orange from the streetlight outside. My blanket felt suddenly too heavy, the air too warm around my face. I could hear my parents' faint snoring in the next room, the distant hum of a passing car. Tap, tap, tap. My chest tightened. I told myself it was a tree, that the wind had kicked up. But there was no wind. The curtains hung still as cloth in a photograph. I swallowed and turned my head toward the sound. The outline of my window was a dim rectangle in the wall. I could see the faint blur of my own reflection, the vague shape of the house opposite. Then the tapping stopped. Something appeared on the glass, slowly, as if someone was writing on the other side. I watched, frozen, as a small circle appeared in the condensation. Then another inside it. Then a dot, pressed hard, so hard I could almost feel the vibration against my skin even from across the room. My breath hitched. The circle stayed there, faint but clearly visible. Then another appeared beside it. And another. I sat up, every movement feeling like I was pushing through thick water. "Hello," I whispered, hating how childish it sounded. No answer. More circles. More dots. Eyes. My hand shook as I reached for the lamp. The second the light came on, the window flashed bright and empty. No eyes. No condensation. Just my own pale, terrified face staring back at me. I didn't sleep after that. The next morning, I dragged myself onto the bus with sandpaper eyes and a stomach full of acid. I scanned the stop where Hira usually got on. She wasn't there. The teacher was alone. She talked to the driver for a long moment, her face tight. Then the bus groaned forward without picking anyone up. She never came back. Rumors spread fast. Some said she'd transferred schools. Some said her family had moved. Some whispered about ambulances and police cars in the middle of the night. No one knew for sure, and the teachers went stiff and quiet every time her name was mentioned. Her seat stayed empty, but her window didn't. For the rest of that week, every morning, condensation bloomed over that glass before any other. Even on days when it wasn't cold enough for the other windows to fog up. I watched from my usual seat as the mist thickened, as faint shapes emerged. Circles. Inside circles. Dots. Eyes. Pressed from the inside. Kids stopped sitting there. Even the troublemakers avoided it, back stiff as they walked past. The driver started glancing at the mirror more often, eyes lingering on that empty row. By Friday, the entire pane was filled. A mosaic of warped, staring eyes, all turned toward the aisle, toward us. They seemed deeper than just marks in moisture. When the bus passed under shadows, I could swear they darkened, pupils widening. That night, the tapping returned. This time, it was louder. Tap, tap, tap. I lay there, pretending I didn't hear it, nails digging crescents into my palms. The air felt thick like the bus when too many people were breathing the same recycled oxygen. Sweat gathered at the back of my neck, cooling too fast. Tap, tap, tap. I stared at the ceiling, watching invisible lines form in the plaster, imagining circles, irises, pupils. When I couldn't stand it anymore, I turned my head in one fast, stupid movement. The window was pale with condensation. I must have been breathing harder than I thought. I could see my reflection distorted, my own eyes wide and glassy, and next to them, pressed into the fog, a fresh eye was forming. Slowly, precisely, as if an invisible finger was working patiently from the outside in. Circle, circle inside, dot, then another, and another, close enough that, for a second, it looked like they were crawling toward my reflection. I didn't move. I didn't scream. I just lay there while the invisible hand worked, each new eye appearing with this horrible, intimate pressure, like someone tapping their finger against the other side of the glass, right at my face. I jerked the curtain closed with a noise that didn't sound human. My own voice unfamiliar. The fabric shook under my grip. On the other side, the tapping continued. Soft, persistent. The drawings kept appearing for a week. In the bathroom mirror after hot showers when I hadn't touched it. On the living room window when I came home from school. The glass still damp from my mother boiling something on the stove. Once, in the car windshield, so faint my father didn't notice, but I did from the passenger seat, watching as a blur of eyes stared back at me from the glass. Then one night it stopped. No tapping, no condensation, no eyes, just the usual darkness pressing against the window, solid and indifferent. You'd think I'd be relieved, but relief never came. Only this sinking feeling, like something that had been watching me had simply stepped back. Not gone, just a farther away, waiting. Sometimes on crowded buses or trains, I feel it again, that prickle on the back of my neck. I catch my reflection in the glass, surrounded by strangers, and for a split second, another reflection seems to stand behind mine. Hood up, dark, dim eyes, finger lifting toward the surface. And every October, When the mornings get cold enough for the windows to fog up, I refuse to sit by the glass. I stay in the aisle, staring at anything but the pale, misted panels beside us. Because somewhere out there, on some route at some hour, there's still an empty seat by a window filled with eyes. Watching, counting, waiting for someone to sit down and ask, "What are you drawing?" So she can turn, just a little, and answer in that soft, flat voice, "I see everyone. I see you too, even when you're not here." My name is Hina, and I've started sleeping with my phone turned off and buried in a drawer. It doesn't help. This started last winter, when my friend Zara moved into her own place. It wasn't anything special, just a small 2-bedroom apartment above a pharmacy. Noisy road in front, alley in the back. The kind of place you pass every day and never really see. She was proud of it, though. Her own keys, her own bills, her own rules. No parents checking what time she came home. We'd been friends since college. Zara was the loud one, the one who could talk her way out of anything. I used to joke that she could charm a traffic cop into apologizing. She didn't scare easily. Horror movies made her laugh. Creepy stories were just good content. So when she called me one morning, voice thin and shaky, I knew something had dug past all of that. "Are you busy tonight?" she asked. "I can come over after work." "Why, what's wrong?" There was a long pause. I could hear car horns in the distance through her end of the line. "I'm not sleeping," she said finally, "and I don't want to be alone." "Because?" She exhaled slowly. "Because someone keeps calling me at night." "Spam calls?" I said. "Block the number." "It's not that," she said. "They're always at the same time. Exactly 2:17 a.m. And it's a girl, crying, saying she misses me." The way she said girl made the hairs on my arms rise. "Do you know her?" I asked. "No," she said. "That's the problem. I don't recognize the voice." She tried to laugh it off, but it came out wrong, brittle at the edges. "Look, just come over tonight. Okay? You'll see. Maybe it's some stupid glitch. Maybe I'm just paranoid." So that night, I went over with an overnight bag and a box of cheap pastries. Her building smelled like dust, old cooking oil, and something medicinal from the pharmacy downstairs. Fluorescent light filled the stairwell with a sickly glow. Her apartment was on the second floor, overlooking the street. Inside, it was cozy in the way new places are when you've barely moved in. Half-unpacked cartons, mismatched curtains, mattress on the floor. Fairy lights draped over one wall, washing everything in a soft yellow warmth. We tried to act normal. We ordered food, watched a movie, argued about work. But as it got later, the atmosphere shifted. The street noise died down. The pharmacy shuddered with a metallic rattle. Her neighbor's TV went off. The apartment seemed to shrink, the walls closing in around the pool of light in the living room. Zara kept glancing at the clock above the TV. At 1:45, she turned the volume down. "Tell me exactly what happens," I said. "What does she say?" Zara rubbed her face with both hands, pressing her palms over her eyes until the skin went white. "The first night, I thought it was a wrong number. The call came at 2:17. I checked. I woke up to the ringtone, answered half asleep, and all I heard was this sobbing. Like someone trying not to cry, you know? Like hiccups and breaths. I said hello. She didn't answer at first, just cried. Then she said, "I miss you." Her voice got smaller toward the end. "And the second night? Same time, same call, same crying. I miss you." I hung up. Last night she added something. I asked who she was. She said, "I'm coming." A chill slid down my spine. Maybe it's a prank? I forced myself to say. Some creep with an app. I checked the number, Zara said. It just says, unknown. No digits. Nothing to block. We moved to her bedroom around 2. The room was dark, the only light from a dim lamp on her dresser. Her phone lay on the bedside table between us, screen dark, its black surface reflecting our faces in pale smudges. The window was directly opposite the bed. It looked out over the street, where a single yellow streetlight threw a circle onto the pavement below. The glass had a faint smear where someone's hand had touched it, probably from when she'd put the curtains up. We lay on top of the blanket, fully dressed, shoes off. Zara's breathing was too quick and shallow for someone pretending not to be scared. I watched the digital clock on her phone because the wall clock made too much noise. The minutes crawled. 2:10, 2:12, 2:15. Maybe she won't call tonight, I whispered, not sure who I was trying to comfort. Zara didn't answer. 2:17, her phone lit up. We both flinched. The vibration was low, a barely there buzz against the wooden table. The screen glowed with an incoming call. For a second, I thought it was a trick of the light. Then my brain caught up with what my eyes were seeing. The caller ID didn't say unknown. It showed Zara's own number. Same digits, same formatting, same name she'd saved herself under. Zara home. My mouth went dry. Is that a spoof? I said, even as the word felt stupid in my mouth. Zara stared at it, eyes wide, pupils swallowing the color. Her hand hovered above the phone, fingers trembling. The ringtone cut through the silence again, too bright, too cheerful for the hour. Don't answer, I whispered. If I don't, it will ring again tomorrow, she said. It always does. She picked it up. Her thumb slid over the screen. For a heartbeat, the light reflected in her eyes like two white coins. Then she lifted the phone to her ear. Hello. Her voice sounded thin. At first, all I could hear was static, soft, hissy, like when you hold a seashell to your ear. Then, underneath it, something else emerged. Crying. It was exactly how she'd described it. Not loud, not dramatic. Just this quiet, strangled sound. Breathing that kept catching. The sound of someone pressing their hand over their mouth in the dark. Who is this? Zara said. Her gaze fixed on nothing, eyes unfocused, as if the voice was painting pictures only she could see. The crying went on for a few seconds more. Then it cut off abruptly, like someone had pressed mute. A voice whispered into the quiet. It was female, young but not a child. Hoarse, like it hadn't used words in a long time. It didn't sound like anyone I knew. I'm right outside, it said. The hair on the back of my neck stood up so fast it hurt. Zara looked at me. I could see my own fear mirrored in her expression. No bravado now. No good content. Just two girls in a dark room, with a phone between them and something they couldn't explain. Outside where? I asked because silence felt worse. The voice on the phone didn't answer. But over it, faintly, I heard something else. A sound that wasn't coming from the speaker. A car passed outside, its engine noise bleeding faintly through the window glass. I heard the hum through the phone as well, slightly delayed. The same sound, twice. She's really close, I said. Zara swallowed. Ask where. Her thumb fumbled for the speaker button. The call went loud, filling the room with soft static. The crying had stopped again. There was just breathing, slow and wet, like someone inhaling through a blocked nose. I stood up, drawn to the window by something between morbid curiosity and dread. The curtains were half open. The streetlight painted a halo on the pavement below, catching dust in the air. Empty road, closed shop fronts, a stray cat darting into the alley. Where are you? Zara asked, voice shaking. The answer came from the phone and the world at the same time. Not words, a sound, a slight shuffle, a soft exhale. Check the window, the voice whispered. Except this time I was sure I heard it twice. Once in the room, once through the speaker. My skin iced over. Hands suddenly too clumsy. I gripped the curtain and pulled it back fully. She was standing directly under the streetlight. For a second, my brain refused to register her as a person. She could have been a shadow or a trick of the light, the way she stood so still. Slim figure in a pale top, bare arms, hair hanging forward like a curtain, obscuring her face completely. Her head was tilted slightly, as if listening. She was holding a phone to her ear. Every instinct in me screamed to step back, to drop the curtain, to make her disappear. Instead, I pressed closer to the glass, my breath fogging a small circle. She's there, I whispered. Zara, She's actually there. Zara joined me at the window, phone still pressed to her ear. Her hand brushed mine. She was freezing. The girl under the streetlight didn't move. The pool of yellow around her made her look almost flat, like a cutout from a photograph. Beyond the light, the night was thick and black. "Who are you?" Zara said, louder now, as if she needed the strength of her voice to keep the fear from swallowing her. "What do you want?" For a moment, I thought the call had dropped. Then the voice came again, crackling slightly with static. "You never answered," it said. "I've been calling. I miss you." "I don't know you," Zara said, tears starting to gather in her eyes. "You have the wrong person." On the street, the girl tilted her head a little more, like a dog hearing a distant whistle. Slowly, she raised the phone away from her ear and held it out in front of her. Even from that distance, I saw the glow of the screen. It was the same as the one Zara was holding. Same layout, same icon, the same number displayed on it. Zara's number. My stomach dropped. The girl's free hand lifted and brushed her hair aside, just enough for me to glimpse the side of her face. Her skin looked wrong, not in a monstrous way, just too pale, too flat under the streetlight, like a face seen through frosted glass. Her cheek was wet. Her eyes, the little I could see of them, were fixed on our window. On us. "She can see us," I whispered. As if in response, the girl smiled. It was slow, a curve that didn't reach her eyes. The phone against Zara's ear crackled again. The voice that came through this time was softer, almost affectionate. "I'm coming up," it said. At the same instant, we heard something from inside the building. A door downstairs, opening, closing, footsteps on the stairwell. Not hurried, not dragging, just steady. One step, then another. The sound carried up through the floor, dull thuds that vibrated in my ankles. "She's messing with us?" I said, backing away from the window. "It's a prank. It has to be. Someone from your contacts, playing with a spoof app." Zara shook her head numbly. "I changed my number last week," she whispered. "After the first night. I didn't tell anyone but you." The footsteps reached the first landing. Our landing. Zara dropped the phone like it had burned her. It bounced off the mattress and landed face down, the voice still leaking out, muffled by the fabric. "Don't open it," I said. My own voice sounded distant in my ears. "Whatever happens, we don't open the door." We moved to the bedroom door together, drawn to it like people drawn to the edge of a cliff. The thin wood looked suddenly insubstantial. There was just the narrow hallway between us and the apartment entrance. We heard her reach it, the soft scuff of feet stopping, the pause, then, knock. It was gentle. 3 light taps, polite, almost shy. My lungs forgot how to work. No one sensible knocks like that at 2:17 a.m. Zara clapped a hand over her mouth, stifling a sob. We stood there, frozen, staring at the bedroom door as if we could see through it. The phone on the bed hissed and crackled. The voice came again, clearer now that the distance between the caller and us had vanished. "Why aren't you opening?" it asked, genuinely confused. "You said you missed me too." "I never said that," Zara choked out, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I never." The voice giggled. The sound was wrong, off-key, like something that had learned laughter by imitating recordings. "Yes, you did," it said. "You kept saying you were lonely. You didn't want to sleep alone. I listened. Every night." The knock came again, harder this time, a little less polite. The walls seemed to lean inward with the sound. "Please go away," I whispered, not sure if I was talking to the door or the phone. Silence. For a moment, I thought it was over. No more knocking, no more footsteps. Then softly, by my ear, I heard breathing. Not through the door, not through the phone. Right behind me, cold air brushed the skin at the back of my neck, damp and sour, like someone who'd been outside in the cold too long. My body locked up. I didn't turn, couldn't. Felt like my head was nailed in place. "There you are," the voice whispered, now so close it buzzed in my teeth. I knew you were with her. The lights flickered. Just once. When they came back, the room looked the same, but something had changed. The air felt heavier. My chest hurt with every breath. The phone stopped crackling. The call had ended. We didn't sleep the rest of the night. We stayed on the floor, backs pressed against the wall opposite the bedroom door, watching it like it might start to bend inward. No more knocking came. No footsteps retreated down the stairs. At some point, light began to seep around the edges of the curtains, gray and thin. When we finally found the courage to open the apartment door, the hallway was empty. No one on the stairs. No footprints. No sign anyone had been there at all. The street outside was normal again. Cars, people, street light clicking off with a faint metallic sound. For a few weeks, the calls stopped. Zara moved back in with her parents temporarily. She left most of her stuff in that flat like she was afraid to go back long enough to pack properly. We pretended life was normal. We went to work. We scrolled through memes. We didn't talk about 217. Then, one night, my own phone rang. The sound dragged me up out of sleep with a jolt. I grabbed it off the bedside table, squinting at the screen. 2:17 a.m. Incoming call. Caller ID, my own number. For a moment, my brain refused to process it. Then my heart dropped somewhere below my ribs. My hand shook as I answered. The static was immediately familiar. So was the crying. Zara? I whispered, though I knew it wasn't her. The sobbing hiccuped, then grew quieter. I could hear breathing. Then softly, I miss you. I sat up, the room spinning around me. What do you want? I demanded, though my voice barely rose above a whisper. The answer was the same as always, in the same young, rasping tone. I'm right outside. I knew better than to check. I did it anyway. I pulled back the curtain with fingers that barely obeyed me. Under the streetlight in front of my parents' house, a girl stood with her hair over her face, still as a photo, holding a glowing phone up to her ear. I didn't sleep that night, or the one after. Zara stopped replying to my messages a month ago. People say she's taking a break from everything. Her family says she's fine, just resting. Her number is always switched off now. When I ask if anyone has seen her, I get the kind of tight smiles people use when they don't want to talk. The calls to me don't come every night. Sometimes weeks pass with nothing, and I start to believe it's over. Then 2:17 rolls around, and my phone buzzes with a call from myself. Sometimes I answer, sometimes I don't. It doesn't seem to matter, because more and more lately, I feel it on buses, in empty streets, in my own hallway when I come home late. The sense of eyes on my back, of a presence just outside my field of vision, of someone walking a half step behind me, never close enough to see if I turn suddenly, but always there, waiting for the night I'm too tired to resist, the night I decide to open the door. I still check my cupboards at night to make sure nothing inside is smiling. Back then, I was just another kid who thought horror was something that happened on screens, not in classrooms that smelled like chalk dust and cheap sanitizer. It started in grade 8, the year they merged 2 sections because of staff shortages. Our room was overcrowded. Rows of mismatched desks, flickering tube lights that buzzed when the fans came on, and one ancient wooden teacher's desk at the front, with drawers that stuck and a lock that never quite closed right. That was the year Aisha joined our class. She was small for her age, with straight black hair cut bluntly at her shoulders, always pinned back with the same chipped blue clip. She wore her uniform perfectly, shirt tucked in, shoes polished, but there was always something slightly off about her. Not in a dramatic way, just this constant sense that she wasn't quite synced with everyone else. And she carried a doll. Not just sometimes. Every day. It was a porcelain doll, the kind you might see on an old shelf in someone's grandmother's house. Its face was cracked along one cheek, a hairline fracture that ran through one glassy blue eye. The hair was matted and uneven, like someone had cut it in anger. The dress was once probably white. Now it was a grayish cream, with faint brown stains along the hem. Aisha kept it in her backpack. Not shoved carelessly inside, no. She carried the bag on her front, arms wrapped protectively around it like someone cradling a baby. When she sat, She placed the bag gently on her lap and unzipped it halfway, so the doll's head could peek out. Sometimes, when she thought no one was watching, she'd turn the doll's face toward the front like she wanted it to see the board. We were 13. Our class wasn't kind. "Do you sleep with that thing?" someone teased once. "She's not a thing," Aisha said quietly, fingers stroking the doll's plastic hair. "Her name is Layla." The way she said it made a few people snicker. A few others shifted uncomfortably. Our homeroom teacher was Miss Sarah. Early 30s, sharp eyebrows, lipstick always perfectly applied. She was strict, but not unfair. She hated distractions. She hated anything that looked like it might disrupt her fragile control of 30 restless teenagers. The doll became one of those things very quickly. First, Miss Sarah ignored it. Aisha was a good student. Quiet, attentive, always prepared. But as weeks passed, the doll became part of the room. When Aisha answered questions, she'd sometimes glance down at the bag, like she was checking for approval. When someone made fun of her, she'd whisper into the backpack, lips moving fast, as if calming a child. One afternoon, during a math lesson, it happened. We were halfway through a problem on the board. The fans were spinning slowly, blades cutting through the heavy heat with lazy effort. The air smelled like sweat and ink. A fly buzzed around the fluorescent tube. "Ali," Miss Sarah snapped, "come solve this." I stood up, my chair scraping loudly, and walked to the board. As I picked up the chalk, I heard a faint sound from behind me, whispering. I glanced back. Aisha was hunched over her backpack, head bowed, lips brushing the doll's cracked porcelain ear. "Aisha," Miss Sarah said sharply, "is there something you want to share with the class?" A few laughs. I turned back to the board, but my hand hovered, chalk poised. Aisha shook her head. "No, miss." "Then pay attention. Put that toy away properly. This is not a nursery." Aisha's hands tightened around the bag. "She doesn't like being zipped all the way," she said. Her voice trembled. "She gets." "Aisha." Miss Sarah's tone flattened. "Do not argue with me over a doll. She gets angry in the dark." Aisha blurted louder. Her eyes shone with sudden tears. "Please, miss. She doesn't like it." The room went quiet. Even the ceiling fans seemed to groan louder. Miss Sarah stared at her for a long second, something like disbelief flickering across her face. Then she stepped away from the board, heels clicking on the tiled floor. "You are disrupting my class," she said. "Bring it here." Aisha shook her head so hard her hair clip slipped. "No, miss, please. Now." The word cracked like a slap. Aisha flinched. Slowly, like every muscle was protesting, she stood up. Her fingers stroked the doll's head once, twice. Then she carefully pulled it out of the bag. Up close, I saw it properly for the first time. The crack through the eye, the faded dress, the small, delicate hands. Something about the proportions was wrong. The arms seemed too thin for the heavy head. One of the painted eyelashes had flaked off, leaving a bare patch above the glass eye. Aisha carried it to the front like carrying something that might explode. Miss Sarah held out her hand. "I will return it after class." "Please don't lock her," Aisha whispered. "She doesn't like being taken away. She doesn't like the dark." There was a pleading note in her voice that made my stomach twist. Not because I believed her, because she did. Miss Sarah's expression hardened. "Enough. Give it to me." Aisha let go. For a second, as the weight of the doll shifted, I swore I heard something, like the faintest ceramic click, not quite matching the movement. Miss Sarah set the doll on her desk, then, after a beat, opened the top drawer. The hinge squealed. She picked up the doll, expression somewhere between annoyance and discomfort, and placed it inside. The porcelain face vanished from view. I caught a glimpse of one small, pale hand sticking out before she pushed it further in and closed the drawer. The lock clicked. Aisha's face crumpled. She didn't cry like normal kids do, no loud sobs or wailing. She broke apart quietly. Her eyes filled, and her hands flew to her ears, fingers digging in as if trying to block out a sound only she could hear. Her breathing sped up, whistling through her teeth. "Please," she whispered. Please, she'll be angry. Aisha, that is enough, Miss Sarah said, eyes flashing. You will get it back after school. Sit down. The rest of the period was useless. No one was paying attention, least of all me. I kept glancing at the drawer. Once I thought I saw it move, a tiny, almost imperceptible twitch. But it could have been the light shifting or my imagination. When the bell rang, everyone rushed out. Everyone but Aisha. She stayed glued to her seat, eyes fixed on the drawer, shoulders shaking slightly. Go, Miss Sarah said, packing her books. Class is over. Miss, please give her back now, Aisha said. Please. She doesn't like being alone. You'll get it tomorrow, Miss Sarah said. I'm keeping it in here tonight. Maybe then you'll understand that toys do not belong in this classroom. Something in the way she said tonight made the hairs on my arms rise. Keeping it here, in the empty room, in the dark. Miss, she doesn't like. Enough, Miss Sarah said, losing patience. If you continue this, I will be speaking to your parents about your behavior. Go home. Aisha's lips trembled. For a moment, I thought she would refuse. Then something in her just caved. She stood, lifted her empty backpack, limp, shapeless without the doll inside, and walked out without another word. As I left, I glanced back one last time. The drawer was closed, but the faintest sliver of pale fabric was caught where the wood met metal, like something inside hadn't been fully pushed down. That night it rained. The power cut out in our block twice. My room glowed with my phone screen as I scrolled through memes, trying not to think about the doll locked in that desk in that dark classroom. I told myself it was ridiculous. Porcelain and cloth. Nothing more. Still, before I fell asleep, I imagined the school building with all its lights off, the echoing corridors, the creak of water in the pipes. I imagined our classroom door, the desks like rows of shadows. I imagined the sound of something shifting inside a wooden drawer. The next morning, the rain had washed the air clean. The sky was pale and empty. As I walked up the school steps, kids clustered in groups, whispering in that tight, excited way that only comes when something has happened. Our classroom door was open. Miss Sarah wasn't there. Instead, the headmistress stood at the front, lips pressed thin, hands folded. Behind her, I saw the desk. It looked wrong. Papers were everywhere. Shredded. Not torn in half or crumpled, shredded. Long, thin strips like someone had dragged claws through stacks of worksheets. The wall mirror near the door, the one Miss Sarah used to check her lipstick, was cracked in a spiderweb pattern, radiating out from one point near the center. The shards still clung to the frame, but the face it would reflect now would be in pieces. On the bed in the small attached staff room, we could see it through the half-open door. Something pale sat neatly on the rumpled sheets. The doll. Her head was tilted slightly to one side. The crack through her eye seemed deeper, the blue glass iris catching the light in a way that made it look wet. A murmur rippled through the class. Silence, the headmistress snapped. Miss Sarah is unwell. She will not be coming in today. What happened? Someone asked from the back. That is not your concern, the headmistress said, too quickly. Sit. We will be arranging a substitute teacher. My eyes moved to the desk. The top drawer hung slightly open. Slowly, like someone underwater, I walked closer. The shredded papers scratched under my shoes. Ink smudged against my sole. Inside the drawer, the wood was gouged. Thin, jagged lines crisscrossed the bottom and sides, deep in some places, shallow in others. Not straight like from a knife. Curved. Repeated. The marks clustered toward the front, where the lock was, like something had tried over and over to reach the gap. I swallowed hard, throat dry. Behind me, someone giggled nervously. Aisha did this for revenge, I bet. We looked for her. She wasn't there. Where's Aisha? I asked the headmistress when I found a moment. She hesitated. For a fraction of a second, something like fear flickered in her eyes. Then it was gone. She will not be joining you today either, she said. Go back to your seat, Ali. No one saw Aisha again after that. Her name was never mentioned in assembly. Nobody announced that she'd transferred or moved. It was like she'd been erased from the class list, leaving only her empty chair and the memory of that limp backpack. The doll disappeared too. One day it was sitting on the staff room bed. The next it was gone. When I asked a cleaner about it, she crossed herself and muttered something about throwing it away. But her eyes darted toward the classroom like she didn't fully believe it. For a while, things went back to normal. New teacher, new homework, new gossip. Then small things started happening. First, it was tiny. My pencil case would be unzipped when I was sure I'd closed it. My eraser would be on the floor, not where I'd left it. Once, I opened my bag and found my notebooks out of order, carefully rearranged, like someone had gone through them with interest. I blamed my friends, pranks, boredom. Then I started hearing it. A faint, almost too soft scratch from inside my backpack during class, like something small and hard shifting against a zipper. Whenever I opened it, everything looked normal. One afternoon, as the substitute droned on about grammar, I felt a weight in my bag that shouldn't have been there. Heavy, solid, resting against my foot where the bag touched the floor. My heart began to pound. Slowly, I slid the bag into my lap and unzipped it. Books, pencil case, lunchbox, and, tucked neatly between my math book and my dictionary, something else. A tiny porcelain hand. Just the hand. No arm. No body. No doll. Fingers dirty, cracked at the wrist, as if snapped off something larger. For a second, the classroom around me blurred. The air smelled like old paper and something sweet and rotten, like flowers left too long in water. My skin crawled. I snapped the bag shut so fast my knuckles hurt. That night, I put the hand in a shoebox and buried it at the back of my cupboard under old clothes. My hands shook the whole time. The porcelain felt colder than it should have been. I thought that would be the end. It wasn't. Sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet and everyone else is asleep, I hear it. A soft, distinctive tap-tap from inside the cupboard. Not loud enough to wake anyone, just enough to let me know it's there. Moving. Waiting. Once, when I couldn't stand it anymore, I opened the cupboard and pulled out the shoebox. The lid was slightly askew. Inside, the porcelain hand had shifted. Before, I'd left it lying flat. Now, the fingers were curled in toward the palm, like it was in the middle of forming a fist, or reaching for something. I haven't told anyone. Who would I tell? Remember that girl with the doll? I think her toy left me a piece of itself. Sometimes I wonder where Aisha went, if she's still out there somewhere, carrying something much heavier than a doll. Sometimes I dream that I'm sitting in our old classroom, and when I look down, the hand is back in my bag. But this time it's bigger, the wrist smoother, like it's growing back up a missing arm. And sometimes, when I wake up in the dark, I swear I hear a faint, childish voice whisper from inside the cupboard, thin, muffled, like it's speaking through layers of fabric. She doesn't like being taken away, followed by a tiny, deliberate scratch against wood. I cover every mirror in my room before I go to sleep. Started with a joke. At least that's what we thought it was. Something to tease, something to laugh about later. It was summer, we were bored, and we weren't smart enough to recognize real fear when it was staring us in the face. My cousin Rafi was cramming for his board exams, and his parents had hired a tutor to come to their house 3 times a week. A bunch of us used to gather there to study with him, which meant we did maybe an hour of work and spent the rest of the time scrolling, gossiping, and making fun of each other's crushes. That's how I met Hina. She was a friend of Rafi's classmate and started coming along to group study. She was quiet at first, sharp eyes, bitten nails, hair always tied back in a low ponytail. The kind of girl who looked like she watched the room more than she participated in it. Over a few weeks, I noticed something. She avoided mirrors. Not just casually like, haha, I don't like how I look today. I mean, actively avoided them. Rafi's house had this long hallway with a big rectangular mirror hanging halfway down. Everyone else glanced at it as they passed. Fixing hair, checking their face, doing that half-second vanity check you don't even think about. Hina walked with her head turned away, eyes on the floor, shoulders tensing as she went by. If someone stopped in front of the mirror, she'd wait at the end of the hallway until they were done. pretending to scroll her phone. The first time I really noticed was when Rafi's mom called us all to wash up before eating. The bathroom had a medicine cabinet above the sink, mirror-fronted like every other bathroom in existence. I went in after Hina. The mirror was covered with a hand towel, draped over the top like someone had dressed it on purpose. I laughed and pulled it down. When I came back out, I saw Hina sitting on the edge of the sofa, hands clasped so tight her knuckles were white. She glanced at me, then at the bathroom door. "You shouldn't uncover it," she said quietly. "Why?" I asked. "You afraid you'll realize how pretty you are?" It was lame, automatic teasing, but it bounced off her like I hadn't spoken. Her eyes were locked on the door. "She doesn't like it when there are too many mirrors," Hina whispered. "Who?" She looked at me then, properly, and something in her expression made my skin tighten. It wasn't embarrassment or shyness. It was the kind of look you see in people who have already given up trying to make others believe them. "My reflection," she said. I laughed because that's what you do when someone says something that makes reality wobble for a second. Rafi laughed too when I told him. "I swear, she covered the mirror," I said. "Like those old horror movies where they think spirits get trapped in the glass." "She's always been weird about it," Rafi said. "At school she does her makeup using her phone camera instead of the washroom mirror. Says it lags." "Lags?" I snorted. "What? She thinks she's in a video call with herself?" Rafi shrugged. "She told my sister once that her reflection doesn't move exactly when she does. Like it's a little bit ahead, or behind, or thinking for itself. Should have been funny. A glitch in the Matrix. TikTok material." But that night, lying in bed, I kept thinking about her face when she said, "My reflection." The way her voice had changed, gone small and flat. The next time she came over, we pushed it. It was one of those humid afternoons where the air feels like wet cloth on your skin. The fan in Rafi's room was on full speed, making that low, rattling hum that burrowed into my skull. Books were spread out in front of us. No one was reading them. Hina sat on the floor, back against the wall, her phone screen turned down, knee bouncing slightly. She looked tired. There were faint smudges under her eyes, like she hadn't slept properly in days. "Hey," Rafi said suddenly. "We never got to see this freaky reflection of yours." "Drop it," she said immediately. I grinned. "Come on, we're dying of boredom. Do a magic trick. Make your evil twin appear." "It's not funny," she snapped. It was the first time I'd heard real anger in her voice. You don't understand." "Then make us understand," I said. "Show us. If we all look and nothing happens, you can stop worrying, right?" She swallowed hard, throat working. Her hands were trembling on her knees. "I'm not crazy," she whispered. "I didn't say you were." I softened my voice, lying through my teeth. "If something's wrong, maybe we'll see it. Maybe it's just, I don't know, like angles." Rafi backed me up, gentler now. "We'll be with you. You won't be alone. Just one look. If nothing happens, we'll never mention it again." Silence stretched out. The fan rattled. Car honked outside, distant. Somewhere downstairs, Rafi's mom's bangles chimed as she moved around the kitchen. Finally, Hina exhaled. "Just once," she said. "And if you laugh, I'm leaving." We chose the big hallway mirror. It was the clearest, no cracks or smudges, just a plain rectangle framed in cheap wood, hanging opposite the family photos. I'd walked past it 1,000 times without really seeing it. Now, as we stood in front of it, it felt different. Heavier. Like there was more space behind the glass than there should be. Hina hung back at first, hovering by the doorway. "Come on," I said gently. "We're right here." She stepped forward like she was walking into cold water. Her skin had gone a shade lighter. Tiny goosebumps prickled along her arms. We lined up facing the mirror. Me on the left, Rafi in the middle, Hina on the right. Our reflections stood opposite us. 3 teenagers in a too bright hallway, faces a little paler from the overhead light. For a moment, nothing happened. Then I noticed Hina wasn't looking directly at herself. Her eyes darted, watching the reflection from the corner like you might watch a wild animal. It started small, she said, voice barely above a whisper. I'd blink, and it felt like I had seen myself blink twice, or I'd turn my head and it would feel delayed. I told myself it was stress, tiredness. But then, she trailed off. Then what? Rafi asked. Shoo, she hissed. Just watch. We stood there in a strained, unnatural stillness, like actors waiting for a cue. My own heartbeat sounded too loud in my ears. On 3, I said, trying to make it feel like a game. We all blink at the same time. Ready? No one answered. 1, 2. We stared straight ahead. My eyes burned, dryness scraping the lids. 3. I blinked. In that fraction of darkness, I felt something tug behind my eyes. Like a hitch, a stutter. I snapped them open. My reflection was still staring back at me, eyes open. So was Rafi's. Only Hina's reflection had blinked. Her real eyes were still wide, bloodshot, unblinking in sheer concentration. It happened in less than a second. A misalignment so small you could have missed it if you weren't waiting. But we had been waiting. I saw that, Rafi whispered. Did you see that? I nodded, throat too tight for words. Hina's face crumpled. Tears welled instantly, spilling over without the messy lead-up of sobbing. You see it, she said hollowly. You see it now. Maybe we messed up the timing. I started, but I'd heard my own intake of breath synchronized perfectly with my reflection's chest rising. Again, Rafi said, voice strained. Do it again. No, Hina whispered. Please. But we were already staring, caught, suddenly desperate to prove it to ourselves one more time, as if repetition would make it normal. On 3, Rafi said. 1, 2, 3. This time I didn't blink. None of us did. In the mirror, our reflections did. All 3. Lids down, up, almost in unison, but not quite. Hina's reflection blinked first, then mine, then Rafi's, like a wave rolling from right to left. I felt the blood drain from my face. The room tilted for a second. Behind us, nothing had changed. The hallway, the photos, the distant clatter from the kitchen. Inside the mirror, I saw something else. Our reflections straightened subtly. Just a millimeter. Just enough to look aware. Rafi's reflection tightened its jaw a second before he did. Mine's fingers twitched toward its sides when my hands were still minutes from moving. Hina's reflection slowly, very slowly, began to smile. Her real face stayed frozen, mouth trembling, eyes wide and wet. In the glass, though, her other face unfurled this horrible, deliberate smile. It didn't look happy. It looked like someone learning the shape of the expression for the first time. The corners of the mouth lifted, but the eyes stayed flat and bright. Hina made a small animal sound in the back of her throat. Stop, she whispered. Stop it. Stop it. Her reflection's smile widened. The fluorescent light above us flickered once, buzzing loudly like an insect trapped in a jar. For a heartbeat, the hallway dimmed. In that dimness, the figures in the glass seemed darker, deeper, like they were closer to the surface. Turn around, I said. Just turn around. Back away. My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone underwater. None of us moved. It was like the mirror had grown weight, pulling us in. My eyes stung, but I couldn't look away. Every tiny motion in the glass felt ahead of me, anticipating me. I raised my hand to touch my face. My reflection's hand rose a fraction of a second earlier, as if suggesting the movement. Then Hina screamed. The sound ripped through the hallway, raw and high, snapping whatever invisible thread was holding us. She lunged forward, grabbed the edge of a picture frame on the wall, and swung it at the mirror with all her strength. The glass shattered. The sound was sharp and painful, like a crack of thunder in a small space. Tiny shards exploded outward, catching the overhead light in a burst of white. I flinched, raising my arms. Something stung my cheek. The mirror was gone. In its place, a jagged, empty rectangle gaped, a wound in the wall. Glass littered the floor, glittering like ice. My ears rang. We stood there, breathing hard, as Rafi's mom shouted from downstairs, "What happened?" Footsteps pounded on the stairs. Hina's shoulders shook. Blood ran in a thin line down her forearm where a shard had cut her. Rafi reached for her, but she jerked away, staring at the floor, at the glass. "Don't look," she said hoarsely. "Don't." Too late. In every shard, no matter how small, our reflections remained. Not broken, not fragmented. Whole. Each piece held a tiny, perfect version of the three of us, standing in the hallway. They weren't mimicking our movements anymore. They were still, watching. In one larger shard near my foot, I saw my own miniature face turned slightly to the side, eyes not meeting mine but looking up towards something behind me. I spun around. Empty hallway. Just the wall, the staircase, the family photos. When I looked back down, my shard self was smiling faintly. Rafi's mom burst into the hallway, saw the broken mirror, the blood, the glass. There was shouting, questions, a flurry of cleaning and scolding and hurried reassurances. Hina stayed silent through all of it, eyes fixed on the dustpan as they swept the shards away. When they dumped them into the black garbage bag, the tiny glints of reflected light vanished into the darkness. That night, Hina stopped answering messages. Rafi told me later that she refused to leave her house, that her parents took her to a doctor, then a therapist, that she covered every reflective surface in her room and still slept facing the wall. "She says they're not stuck in the mirror anymore," he whispered to me once, weeks later. "She says now there are too many of them, that every surface shows something slightly different." "Reflections," I said. He shook his head slowly. "Not just hers." I didn't understand then. I think I do now, because sometimes, when I'm washing my hands and glance at the bathroom tap, the metal shows a warped, rounded version of my face. If I hold unnaturally still, if I focus until my eyes burn, I swear the tiny reflection breathes a fraction of a second before I do. Sometimes my phone camera opens in selfie mode and the image on the screen is just a little too quick to adjust, like it's been waiting. And once, late at night, I walked past a dark window, saw my silhouette reflected in the glass, and felt it turn its head to follow me a heartbeat before my neck muscles moved. Maybe it's just nerves, sleep deprivation, the echo of a moment that shook me more than I want to admit. Or maybe the mirror didn't break the way we thought. Maybe we didn't trap something behind the glass. Maybe we let it out. Now, before bed, I cover my mirrors. I turn picture frames face down. I put my phone away. And as the room dims and shapes fade, I feel it. A weight at the edges, where the darkness can still pretend to be reflective, waiting for me to look long enough for it to blink first. I don't sit in bleachers anymore. If friends drag me to a match, I stand at the fence, or pace along the edge of the field, or fake a phone call out by the parking lot. Anywhere except up there. Stacked rows of hollow metal, shadows nesting underneath like ribs. It started on a cold Halloween night, the year my school made it to the regional final. The whole town showed up. Cars lined the streets for blocks, headlights illuminating kids in cheap plastic masks and face paint. The air smelled like popcorn, damp grass, and the faint chemical bite of those glow sticks everybody was swinging around. Our breath came out in little clouds when we laughed, disappearing in the stadium lights. The bleachers were packed. Metal groaned under the weight of hundreds of feet. People stamped and shouted and blew into their hands, their voices echoing off the concrete wall behind us. Someone had brought a speaker and was blasting some horror playlist between the marching band's songs. I was there with my friends, pretending to care about the score, mostly just enjoying the chaos. I had my hoodie pulled up, my school's colors painted on my cheeks, my phone out to record everything for Instagram. We were about halfway through the second quarter when it happened. Our team had just scored. Everyone surged to their feet at once, a wave of bodies and noise. I jumped up with them, my knee knocking against the metal bench, and felt my phone slip from my hand. I grabbed at it, fingers grazing the case, and missed. It hit the bleacher with a hollow clack, skidded forward, and vanished into the gap between our row and the one in front. "Shit," I muttered, dropping back down. "Nice hands, Sam," My friend Zoya laughed over the roar of the crowd. You should be the one out there catching passes. I ignored her and dropped to my knees, peering into the narrow darkness under the bench. The stadium lights didn't reach under there. I could just make out the faint rectangular glow of my phone, wedged against a support beam a couple of rows down. How far? Zoya asked, bending beside me. Not far. I'll go get it. Watch my spot. You're really going under there? She wrinkled her nose. Good luck not getting stepped on. The idea of losing my phone, with all its unsaved videos and messages, felt worse than the idea of crawling around in the dust. Adrenaline and embarrassment made the decision for me. The underside of the bleachers was a world of its own. I slipped between the metal supports at the side, boots clang-clanging on the lower rail, then dropped down, ducking my head so I didn't smack it. The roar of the crowd muffled instantly, replaced by a lower, heavier sound. The thumping of feet above me, the rattle of the structure with every cheer, the hollow echo of voices as they filtered through. It was darker under there. Not pitch black, but dim, shadows layered beneath the silver grid of steps. I could smell rust and old spilled soda, dirt and something damp. The ground was a mix of packed earth and gravel. Dust puffed up around my hands as I went to all fours. Light leaked in from the sides, slicing across the space in thin lines. In that broken light, I saw gum smashed flat into the beams, a lost shoe, crumpled plastic cups, and there, 2 rows ahead, just out of reach, the faint glow of my phone screen, face down, still on. I started crawling toward it. The metal above my head vibrated with a stamp from the crowd. Tiny rust flakes floated down, prickling my neck. My palms grew gritty. The closer I got to the middle, the more the light faded, swallowed by the maze of beams and supports. That's when I heard it. At first I thought it was the wind, a faint, breathy sound, almost drowned by the stomping and shouting above. Then it came again. 789. A voice, soft, female, coming from somewhere deeper under the bleachers. I froze, my hand hovering mid-crawl. Hello, I called quietly. My voice sounded strange under there, flattened, swallowed by the metal skeleton of the bleachers. The shouting from the stands became a distant ocean, rising and falling. 10, 11, 12. The voice kept counting. I squinted into the shadows, between the beams and crossbars. In a pocket of darkness where the light didn't reach, something moved. A small shape hunched low. I swallowed. Hey, are you okay? The counting stopped. The silence that followed felt heavier than all the noise above. Dust motes floated lazily in a shaft of light near my hand. My heartbeat thudded loud in my ears. Then the shape shifted and the girl came into view. She was crouched on the ground, knees hugged to her chest, arms wrapped around her shins. Her hair hung in limp strands around her face, dark and stringy, clinging to her cheeks like she'd been sweating or crying. She wore a school hoodie, but the logo was smeared with dirt. Her jeans were torn at the knees, not the fashionable kind of tear, but scraped open like she'd fallen hard. Her skin was too pale for the cold night, not just light, drained, like all the warmth had been leached out of her. Her lips moved soundlessly, forming numbers. I realized she was still counting, but so quietly now I couldn't hear the words. Are you hurt? I asked. Her head jerked up. Her eyes locked onto mine. They were gray, not the soft kind you write romantic songs about. Flat gray, like cloudy water over metal. For a second, I thought there was something wrong with the light. Then she blinked and they stayed the same, dull, unreflective. She stared at me like she'd been waiting. Up above, the announcer's voice boomed something unintelligible. The crowd responded with a cheer, the metal under my knees vibrating. You shouldn't be down here, I said, though the thought had occurred to me only now that I was saying it. It's not safe if people jump around. The whole thing shakes. She ignored that completely. Her hand shot out and clamped around my wrist. Her fingers were small, but the grip was fierce, almost painful. Her skin felt cold, not just from the weather. Deeper than that, like touching a stone that had been in the shade all day. I tried to pull back reflexively, but she held on with surprising strength. Her mouth moved closer to my ear, her hair brushing my cheek. She smelled like damp fabric and something faintly metallic, like old blood or pennies. "Don't go back up," she hissed. Her breath was cold too. It sank into my skin. My throat went dry. "What?" She leaned closer, eyes boring into mine. "Someone up there doesn't belong," she whispered. The words slipped into my head like a needle. A chill ran down my spine. My first thought, stupidly, was of some psycho with a knife in the stands, some shooter, some horror headline waiting to happen. But everyone had been laughing and cheering. No one had looked out of place. "What do you mean?" I asked. "Who?" She let go of my wrist. The sudden release made me sway. Blood rushed back into my hand with a prickling sting. She didn't answer. Her gaze flicked past me, toward the edges of the bleachers, the narrow slit where light and noise spilled in. Her lips started moving again. 38, 39, 40. Counting. Like a metronome no one else could hear. I backed up a little, unsettled. "Okay," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Look, I'm just going to grab my phone. All right? You should tell someone if you're in trouble. We can." "Too late," she whispered. I didn't want to be under there anymore. I scrambled forward, grabbed my phone with a dusty hand, and stuffed it into my pocket. When I glanced back, she'd shifted again, melting deeper into the shadows, her face half hidden. Her eyes, though, I could still see, still locked on me, still counting. I crawled out faster than I'd gone in, bumping my shoulder on a beam, scraping my palm on rough concrete as I reached the side gap and hauled myself up. The roar of the crowd crashed over me like a wave, shocking after the muffled underbelly whirled. The stadium lights felt too bright, the cold air against my face suddenly sharp. Zoya grabbed my arm. "Dude, where were you? I couldn't even see you under there." "I dropped my phone," I said, breathing hard. "There was a girl down there." She frowned. "Maintenance staff?" "No, like our age." Even saying it out loud sounded stupid now. "She was just crouched under there, counting. She told me not to come back up." Zoya laughed, then stopped when she saw my face. "Are you serious?" "Yeah. She said someone up here doesn't belong." We both turned instinctively, scanning the bleachers. Rows and rows of faces. Kids in hoodies and jackets. Parents with scarves knitted in school colors. Teachers in windbreakers. Painted cheeks, hats, foam fingers. People yelling, clapping, sipping from styrofoam cups. Totally normal. "Maybe she's, Zoya tapped the side of her head. "Maybe," I said, though the word didn't sit right. I looked back down at the gap where I'd crawled in. From up here, it was just darkness. I could hear the echo of the crowd stomping, but no soft counting, no whisper. "Hey!" Zoya nudged my shoulder. "You okay? You look like you're about to puke." "I'm fine," I lied. The game resumed. The ball flew. People yelled. For a while, I tried to lose myself in it. I cheered when everyone else did. I booed at the referees. I even laughed at the halftime spooky music. But the girl's words stuck in my head. Someone up there doesn't belong. Once I noticed it, I couldn't stop scanning the faces around me. Most people were moving, shouting, talking, turning their heads. Even when they sat still, their eyes moved, following the ball, flicking from person to person. Except one. She was sitting at the very far end of our section, near the top row, in the corner where the lights didn't fully reach. At first glance, she looked like any other student. Dark jacket, jeans, a scarf wrapped loosely around her neck. But she wasn't moving. Her hands rested neatly on her knees. Her shoulders were squared, posture perfect. Her chin was angled just slightly downward, like she was looking at the field. Only she wasn't. Her eyes were locked on me. Even from that distance, I could feel it. That weird, focused attention. The way you can tell when someone's staring at you in class, even if you're not facing them. Her face was hard to make out clearly in the shadow. But the eyes, they were just dark hollows at that distance. No glint from the stadium lights. No blink. I looked away, telling myself I was imagining it. Watched a play. Laughed at a dropped pass. checked my phone. When I glanced back, she hadn't moved. Still, staring. My skin crawled. "Zoya," I muttered. "Do you know that girl?" "Which one?" "Half the school's here." "In the corner," I said. "Top row. By the railing. Black jacket." She squinted. "I see like 7 people in black jackets." "Which?" "That one," I said, pointing. The girl's head didn't turn, didn't flinch. Her gaze never wavered. "Stop pointing, you weirdo," Zoya hissed. "You'll okay? I see her. Might be in my English class? Not sure." "Why?" "She's just staring at you." Zoya's mouth tugged into a grin. "Maybe someone's got a crush." I wanted to laugh. Couldn't. "Has she blinked?" I asked before I could stop myself. Zoya gave me a look. "Who watches strangers to see if they're blinking? Just, have you seen her move at all? Since I came back up." Zoya rolled her eyes and looked again. "She's probably watching the game." "Chill, Sam. You went under the bleachers and freaked yourself out." Maybe she was right. Maybe I was still rattled. I forced myself to look away again. When I checked back a few minutes later, the girl was gone. No empty spot where she'd been. Just a shifting, churning mass of students, people climbing up and down the steps, swapping seats, yelling to friends. "See," Zoya said, following my gaze. "She moved. Can we focus on the actual game now?" I tried. I really did. But for the rest of the night, every time the crowd surged or shifted, I caught glimpses, too brief to be sure, of a face turned my way. Deep in another section, standing on the far side of the field, reflected in the dark glass of the press box, always facing me, never blinking. I never saw the girl under the bleachers again. Security checked under there once, after I mentioned her to a teacher. They said there was no one. No footprints in the dirt except mine where I'd crawled. No sign anyone had been sitting there for long. "Probably a trick of the light," the teacher said. "Or you misheard something with all the noise. Don't worry about it." I tried not to, but sometimes when I'm in a crowd, at a concert, a busy market, even morning assembly, I feel it again. That prickling on the back of my neck. That sense that someone in the sea of faces doesn't quite fit. And every so often, when my eyes sweep over the crowd, I find her, standing too still, looking only at me. In photos from that Halloween game, there's always one blurred figure in the background that looks a little wrong. Too sharp around the edges, hair hanging the same way, head tilted at the same angle as the girl under the bleachers. Sometimes I wake at night convinced I can hear the hollow echo of feet above me, like I'm lying under metal steps instead of my bedroom ceiling. And once, in the dark reflection of my switched-off TV, I could have sworn I saw a pale shape crouched low behind me, lips moving soundlessly, counting. I still cross the street to avoid that particular streetlight. Stupid, I know. Light is supposed to make you feel safer. But ever since that week, it's the one place in my whole neighborhood that feels like open jaws. My name is Farhan, and I didn't used to notice shadows. They were just there. A side effect of existing. You move, they move. You stop, they stop. Nothing worth thinking about. Until hers didn't. She joined our class on a Tuesday, halfway through the term. The kind of day when the air feels stale and everyone stares at the clock more than the board. The fan above us squeaked on every rotation. Sunlight came in hard and bright through the windows, striping the desks in harsh lines. The principal walked in with her, did the usual introduction. "This is Amina. She's just moved here. Make her feel welcome." She looked like any other transfer student. Slim, uniform too crisp, backpack too new. Hair pulled back into a low ponytail, a few loose strands sticking to her forehead like she'd rushed to tie it. She clutched her bag straps a little too tightly. Her eyes lingered everywhere for half a second too long. The board, the windows, our faces. When her gaze passed over me, I felt that small jolt you get when a stranger's eyes actually register you, not just skim past. Then she looked away. She ended up sitting 2 rows over, near the window. By third period, the novelty had already faded. She answered questions in a low, steady voice, wrote fast, didn't smile much, but didn't seem unfriendly either. Just cautious. If I'm honest, I probably would have forgotten about her quickly if it hadn't been for the power cut. It happened during last period. The lights flicked once, twice, then died. The fan wound down with a tired whine. Heat filled the room like someone had shut a door. Our teacher groaned. "Everyone stay seated," she said. "It'll come back." Didn't. We ended up being let out 10 minutes early. The sky outside had gone that weird late afternoon color, too bright and too dim at the same time. The sun hung low but strong, casting long, sharp shadows across the courtyard. We spilled out of class in noisy clusters, complaining about the heat, grateful to be outside. The courtyard is basically a big rectangle of cracked concrete with a few skinny trees trying their best in the corners. On one side, there's a low wall. Beyond it, the street. On the other, the main building. Everyone's shadows stretched out in front of them as we walked. A distorted parade of legs and arms, all attached, all obedient. I was halfway across when I noticed Amina walking alone near the middle. She had her head down, gaze fixed on the ground just ahead of her feet. The sun was behind her. Her shadow should have been in front. I don't know why I looked. Maybe it was the way she held herself, shoulders slightly hunched, like she was trying to make herself smaller. Maybe it was nothing, but I glanced at the ground in front of her. I saw her shadow. At least I thought I did. It was slightly off-center from her body, quiet and dark. A perfectly normal silhouette of a girl walking across cracked concrete. Then she stepped to the left. Her shadow didn't. My brain stumbled. It took a second to register what my eyes were seeing. Amina took 3 more steps, veering toward the right-hand path that led to the gate. Her feet moved. Her body moved. Her hair brushed her shoulders. Her shadow stayed put. It wasn't even in a walking pose anymore. Somewhere between one step and the next, it had settled. Frozen mid-stride, one leg bent, one arm lifted slightly away from the body. A warped version of her, caught like a photograph burned into the ground. The courtyard around it was full of other shadows, long and thin and moving as kids crossed back and forth, like currents in a river. Hers was a rock in the middle. I stopped walking. My books dug into my arm. The sun beat down on my neck, making the back of my shirt damp. That has to be a trick of the light, I thought. Maybe there's another kid in line with her, casting. I blinked, looked again. No one else was near it. It was her. It was undeniably hers. The shape of the ponytail, the slouch of the shoulders, the slightly bent elbow where she held her bag. But she was 10, 15 steps away now, heading toward the gate with no dark shape trailing obediently at her heels. For a moment, I wondered if anyone else noticed. They didn't. A group of boys ran past, their shadows slicing through and over that frozen dark shape without affecting it at all. Stayed exactly where it was, like it had been painted there. My heart pounded in my ears. "Amina!" I called, my voice coming out sharper than I meant. She slowed, half-turned. The sun hit her face, drawing shadows under her eyes, hollowing her cheeks. She looked tired, older than 15 for a heartbeat. "Yeah?" she said. I hesitated. What was I going to say? "Hey, you dropped something. Your shadow." "Nothing," I lied. "Just, we have the chemistry homework for tomorrow. Do you know which questions?" Her gaze flicked past me to the ground, just for a second, to where her shadow should have been. Her jaw tightened. "Yeah," she said. 2, 3, 5. "See you." She turned and walked on. She didn't look back at the frozen dark shape behind her. I did. As she reached the gate, the shadow on the ground twitched. It was tiny, a little jerk of the head, a small readjustment of the lifted arm, like a person standing too still who suddenly shifted their weight. I left the courtyard as fast as I could without running. All the way home, the world felt wrong. Every shadow I passed, I watched twice. My own on the pavement, attached and normal. The tree silhouettes shivering in the late afternoon wind. The long dark stripe of a passing bus. At home, everything was comfortingly familiar. My little sister yelling at cartoons, the smell of onions frying, my mother's voice on the phone. I tried to shove the whole thing to the back of my mind. It didn't stay there. The next day, Amina wasn't in class. Her desk sat empty, chair pushed neatly in. No blazer slung over the back, no pencil case arranged with too much care. "Is she sick?" someone asked. The teacher shrugged. "New students have paperwork. Maybe there was an issue with her transfer. Open your books." By lunch, people had mostly stopped asking. Our school wasn't the kind where new kids stayed long. People came and went. Stories started and ended mid-sentence. But that afternoon, walking home, I reached the corner near my house where the streetlight stands. It's an old one. The metal pole is flaked with rust near the bottom. The glass casing over the bulb has a crack spidering across one side. During the day, it's just another piece of street furniture. At night, it casts a yellowish light that makes everything under it look a little washed out. The sun was gone now, tucked behind the buildings. The sky was smeared in shades of orange and gray. The streetlight flicked on with a faint electric buzz as I approached. The pool of light on the asphalt glowed, empty. Then I saw it. At first, I thought it was just the base of the pole casting a thicker shadow, a darker patch where the light didn't quite reach. I walked closer, squinting. It wasn't the pole. It was a shape, a shadow standing on the edge of the light. It was the outline of a person, but not vertical. It lay flat on the ground, as if someone was standing right at the edge of the streetlight's circle, and their silhouette had been projected onto the asphalt. Except there was no one standing there. No matching body, just the shape, alone. It wasn't like any of the other shadows around. The long smears of parked cars, the tangle of fence shadows. This one was sharp, clean-edged. A girl, arms held a little away from her sides, head tilted just so. Ponytail. I knew that outline. My mouth went dry. As I watched, the shadow shifted. The head turned slightly. The arm bent a little more. Not like movement cast by someone off to the side. It moved independently, making small adjustments as if getting comfortable. The air felt colder suddenly, the way it does before rain, except the sky was clear. "Hello," I said, hating how my voice shook. Nothing answered. The shadow stilled. I stepped backward, out of the circle of light. My own shadow stretched behind me, thin and obedient. It was attached. Normal. The other one stayed where it was, waiting. My house was only a minute away. I walked it faster than I ever had, heartbeat pounding so loud it drowned out traffic. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that frozen courtyard silhouette, that outline under the streetlight. Shadows that didn't behave. At some point, well past midnight, I gave up pretending. I sat up, pushed my curtains aside just enough to peek. The street below was mostly empty. A stray dog sniffed near a garbage bag. A car rolled past slowly, headlights cutting two clean lines through the dark. The streetlight on the corner glowed that familiar yellow. The shadow was still there, exactly where it had been. Flat on the ground, edges crisp despite the distance. Everyone else's shadows came and went with their owners. This one stayed. It hadn't softened or faded. If anything, it looked darker now, like spilled ink. And it wasn't facing the street anymore. It was angled toward my building. It shouldn't have been possible to know that from a shape on the ground. No face, no eyes, but every instinct screamed that its attention had changed direction. To me, I let the curtain fall, heart racing. The next few days blurred together. Amina never came back. No mention of her in roll call. No one seemed to find that strange except me. Even the teacher stopped leaving her name on the list. But the shadow didn't stop. Every night, under that streetlight in that same spot, it was there, no matter what time I checked. A fixed point in the world, like a stain. Sometimes it was in the same pose. Sometimes, barely, it had shifted, arms closer or farther from the body, head tilted more sharply, like someone trying out positions in their sleep. And every time I looked, I felt it more strongly. That sense of being seen. By the fourth night, I couldn't take it. I waited until my parents were asleep, slipped on my shoes, and crept down the stairs. The hallway was cold, the stairwell smelling of dust and someone's cooking from earlier. My hand shook when I unlocked the main gate. Outside, the air felt even colder than it should have for that time of year. The kind of chill that doesn't come from temperature but from something else. The streetlight hummed overhead. The shadow lay in front of it. Up close, it looked wrong. Not just flat darkness, but layered. Like it was deeper than the asphalt, as if you were looking down into a hole disguised as a shadow. It was exactly the height and shape of a girl my age. Ponytail, slight slouch. "Amina," I whispered. Silence. The night around me felt heavy. A distant car horn blared, too far to matter. A dog barked once and stopped. "You don't belong here," I said, not sure if I meant the neighborhood, the street, or this side of whatever line she'd crossed. "Why are you at my house?" For a moment, nothing happened. Then the shadow moved. It was slow, deliberate. No blur, no distortion. Just a slight, smooth motion. The head turned fully to face me. The arms shifted, as if the hands were spreading, fingers splaying on invisible ground. I stepped back, breath catching. Behind me, in the faint reflection of a parked car's window, I caught a glimpse of myself, thin, pale, eyes wide. And next to me, where no one stood, another dark outline, a fraction of a second out of sync. I looked down at my feet. My shadow was still following me, but it looked lighter, washed out, like someone had reduced its opacity. The darkness under the streetlight was so much richer by comparison. Solid. Felt like standing between two magnets, both pulling in opposite directions. The streetlight flickered once, buzzing louder. The dark shape on the ground stretched, not toward any physical object. Toward me, the edge of it reached, lengthening, spilling across the asphalt like spilled oil. My feet were still a foot away from the edge of the light, but the shadow's fingertips elongated, just enough that the tips brushed the tips of my own shadow's toes. I felt it, a cold pressure at the soles of my feet, like standing in shallow water that was much deeper just a step ahead. Panic yanked me backward. I stumbled, heart slamming against my ribs, and bolted for the building. The streetlight hummed behind me. I didn't look back. Inside, I slammed the gate, raced up the stairs two at a time, and shut my apartment door with shaking hands. In my room, I turned on every light. I stood against the far wall, breathing hard, staring at the floor where my own shadow lay, tied to me like it always had been. It looked slightly darker now, the same as before. Maybe. I didn't check the window. I know people will say I imagined it, that I was tired, that kids vanish from schools all the time, that shadows are just blocked light and nothing more. But here's the thing. Shadows aren't just absence. They're records, imprints, proof that something was there. Amina never came back to class. Her name vanished from the register. When I asked the office, they looked at me like I'd misremembered. "We didn't have any new students this term," the clerk said. "Maybe you're confusing years. Maybe I am. Maybe I dreamed her up. Maybe I dreamed the courtyard, the frozen silhouette, the shape under the streetlight. But sometimes, when I'm out walking at sunset, I see it again. On a wall, on the ground, cast by no one I can see. A girl's outline, just slightly apart from any body, paused mid-step. Head tilted toward me, attention fixed, waiting to see which of us will lose our shadow first. I don't do sleepovers anymore. If my friends ask, I say I've got strict parents, too much homework. I'm not in the mood. It's easier than trying to explain that I can't relax in a room where I can see all four corners at once. My name is Hira, and this happened 2 years ago when I was 16 and still stupid enough to think that the scariest part of a sleepover was jump scares in horror movies. It was at my friend Sanaa's house. We'd been planning it for weeks. Last weekend of October, no school the next day, her parents out of town for a wedding, her older brother kind of in charge, which meant he'd be locked in his room playing games while we did whatever we wanted. It was supposed to be fun. I remember the smell of that house when I walked in, cooking oil, detergent, and underneath it, that faint old building smell. Their place was one of those narrow 2-story houses cramped between others just like it. The staircase was steep, the banister loose in one place where it wobbled if you leaned on it. Sanaa's little sister, Alina, opened the door before I even knocked properly. She was 8. Big dark eyes, hair in two messy braids, still in her cartoon pajamas even though it was only early evening. "You're late," she said, like she was the one hosting. "It's 7, I said. "That's not late." "She means you missed the scary part," Sana called from upstairs. "You should have seen Papa trying to show Amy how to use the generator. It was pure horror." We laughed, the house feeling normal and warm and loud. I took my shoes off, went upstairs. Sana's room was a chaotic nest of blankets and pillows on the floor, a string of fairy lights taped crookedly around the window. She'd set out snacks, chips in mismatched bowls, a stack of biscuits, a bottle of cheap soda sweating onto the desk. Her older brother, Hamid, nodded at me from his doorway across the hall, headset already on. "If the lights go out, don't touch the breaker," he said. I fixed it. Kind of. Comforting. We watched our first horror movie around 9. Alina wasn't supposed to be there, but she kept sneaking in and hiding at the foot of the bed like a small, determined ghost. Sana would chase her out. She'd pout in the hallway for 5 minutes. Then we'd feel the mattress dip as she crawled back in. Eventually, Sana gave up. "Fine. But if you have nightmares, don't blame us." "I don't get nightmares," Alina said. The way she said it made me glance at her. It wasn't bravado. It sounded like she was reporting a fact. We turned the lights off. The only glow came from the laptop screen and a sliver of yellow from the hall. The movie was the usual, cursed house, doors moving by themselves, someone crawling wrong. We flinched at all the right moments, grabbed each other's arms, laughed too loudly afterward to prove we weren't really scared. Every time a particularly creepy scene came up, I'd feel movement near my feet. Alina wasn't watching the screen. She was watching the corners. Not the whole room, just the top corners where the walls met the ceiling. Her eyes kept drifting up there, locking for a moment, then sliding to the next one, like she was tracking something moving in a square above our heads. "Hey!" I whispered once, nudging her with my toe. "What are you staring at?" She jerked, as if snapped out of something. Her eyes flicked to me, then back to the nearest corner. "Nothing," she said. She didn't sound like she believed herself. The night stretched out. We finished one movie, put on another more as background noise than anything. Sana's parents video called from the wedding, loud music and bright lights behind them. Hamid came in once to steal chips. At some point after midnight, the house settled into that deep quiet between late and early. The kind of silence where every creak sticks in your brain. Around 2, Sana got sleepy. We turned the laptop off. The room felt suddenly smaller without the flickering light. Just the dim fairy lights, buzzing faintly. Hamid shouted something at his game in the next room. Then his voice faded as he closed his door. The hallway light went off. Darkness pressed in from the edges. We spread out on the floor, each in our own little nest of blanket and pillow. Sana lay nearest the door. I was by the window, the glass cold even from a distance. Alina took the spot between us, curled on her side. "Don't let her hog your blanket," Sana mumbled. "She steals like a demon." "I heard," Alina said sleepily. "Good. Then stop it." We giggled, the sound thin in the dark. After a while, our breathing synced into something like peace. I don't know when I fell asleep. I know exactly when I woke up. It was like being pulled up out of deep water by the back of the neck. 1 second I was nothing. The next I was staring at the ceiling, my heart already pounding. The fairy lights were off now. The only light came from the street, seeping in through a gap in the curtains. It painted a faint stripe across the ceiling and the far wall. The first thing I registered was the sound. A scratch. Pause. Scratch, scratch. Pause. Like nails or something hard, dragging lightly over plaster. It wasn't coming from the door or the floor or the window. It was coming from above. For a moment, I told myself it was rats. Old houses had them. Maybe a stray cat had climbed onto the roof. My brain clung to any explanation that didn't involve something inside the room. Then the scratching shifted. It was subtle, but as I lay there, holding my breath, I could hear it moving. From one corner across the ceiling. Slow, deliberate, as if something was testing its grip. The hair on my arms lifted. "Sana," I whispered. Her breathing stayed slow and deep. If she heard me, she gave no sign. "Alina?" No answer. The scratching stopped. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. My eyes burned from staring into darkness. The stripe of light on the ceiling looked too bright, like it was highlighting something I couldn't quite see. I don't know why I did it. Maybe because not looking felt worse. I turned my head and looked up. She was on the ceiling. At first my eyes refused to make sense of it. The human brain doesn't like seeing bodies where they shouldn't be. For a heartbeat, I thought I was dreaming, or that my sense of up and down had flipped. Alina was above us. She was on all fours, pressed to the ceiling like a spider. Her hands and feet were flat on the plaster, fingers splayed wide. Her elbows bent at angles that made my stomach twist. Her back arched, twisting slightly, like her spine had more joints than it should. Her hair hung straight down toward the floor, defying gravity's direction, the braids dangling like ropes. The stripe of streetlight cut across her face, illuminating only parts of it. One wide, empty eye, the bridge of her nose, the edge of her mouth. That mouth was moving. 1, 2, 3. Her voice was barely audible, a thin whisper spilling from the wrong direction. The sound of her counting dripped into my ears. Wrong, wrong, wrong. My body locked. Every instinct screamed run, 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 but my limbs felt nailed in place. Her head jerked, not turned, jerked, like something had reached down from above and yanked her chin. Both eyes were on me now. They were too wide, too bright in the dim light. The pupils huge, swallowing most of the color. There was nothing in them. No sleep, no mischief, no 8-year-old girl who argued about cartoons. She was silent for a second. Then her lips formed words that did not sound like they belonged to her. "They said I should practice," she whispered. Her voice was breathy, strained, like someone speaking through her lungs from the inside. As she spoke, her limbs shifted again. One hand slid along the ceiling, fingers scraping, leaving faint white marks in the plaster dust. Her foot twisted in a way ankles don't. I tried to scream. Nothing came out. My throat clenched around the sound. My heart was beating so hard my chest hurt. "Sana!" I croaked finally. Came out as barely more than air. "Wake up!" Alina's head twitched again, snapping slightly to the side, as if something had tugged her attention. Her gaze dropped to the floor, to where Sana lay, blanket half kicked off, mouth slightly open, dead to the world. The thing on the ceiling smiled. It was tiny, a small stretch of lips, just enough to show teeth. Not a child's grin, something else trying on the shape. I could move again. I sat up too fast, the blood rushing from my head, and grabbed the nearest thing, my pillow. Completely useless, some distant sane part of me noted. But it was something. "Get down," I said. "You're going to fall." It was the stupidest sentence I could have chosen. Like she was just a kid who'd climbed up on furniture. Alina's neck bent, slowly, until her head was upside down, her face hanging closer to mine. Her body stayed pressed to the ceiling, limbs at impossible angles. "I don't fall," she whispered. "They said I'm getting better." "Who?" The words scraped out of me. Her eyes slid to the far corner of the room, the darkest one, where the shadow from the wardrobe pooled thickest. "They like the corners," she said. "They can watch from there. They get bored when we only walk on the floor." As she spoke, the shadows in that corner seemed to pulse. Maybe it was just my vision swimming. Maybe it wasn't. My muscles finally obeyed the only command that mattered. I lunged sideways and slammed my hand into the lamp switch. Light flooded the room. For a second, the afterimage of her clung to my vision. Small body on the ceiling, twisted limbs, hair hanging. Then it was gone. Alina was lying on her side between us, exactly where she'd been when we fell asleep. Blanket around her shoulders, hands tucked under her cheek, braids spread on the pillow. Her eyes were closed, her breathing soft and even. Sana groaned and rolled over, squinting at me. "Why are the lights on? What time is it?" I stared up at the ceiling. For faint, elongated impressions marked where hands and feet had been, scratches in the plaster, trailing from one corner to the middle of the room. Not deep, not obvious. If you weren't looking for them, you'd miss them. I was not going to miss them ever again. I thought I saw a bug, I said, voice shaking. Big cockroach. Sorry. Sana covered her head with the pillow. Die, she muttered. You and the cockroach. I looked at Alina. Her eyelids fluttered, just once. For a moment, I thought she'd wake, look at me, confess that she'd been doing some kind of insane acrobatics in her sleep. Instead, she just sighed in that small, sleep-heavy way kids do and burrowed deeper into the blanket. The next morning, she was perfectly normal. She yawned and complained about cereal. She argued with Sana over who stole whose socks. She pestered Hamid for a turn on his game. At one point, she climbed up onto the arm of the sofa and declared herself queen of the living room, nearly falling and earning a sharp scolding from their mother. Her feet stayed on the floor. Once, when no one else was looking, I caught her gaze drifting up, to the corner. Her eyes narrowed, just slightly, as if watching something move there that the rest of us couldn't see. Then she noticed me watching and smiled quickly, too quickly. No nightmares, right? I asked her casually when we were alone in the kitchen. She shook her head. I told you, I don't get nightmares. You were talking in your sleep, I said. Last night. What did I say? She asked. You said, they told you to practice. Her face went blank for a second. Every expression wiped clean. The spoon in her hand stilled. I don't remember, she said after a moment, voice light. Too light. Maybe it was just a dream. Maybe, I said. I went home that afternoon and slept with my light on for a month. The marks on the ceiling in Sana's room got painted over, she told me later. Her mother thought it was water damage. The paint covered them, but didn't erase the way Alina sometimes sat in the living room and stared at the upper corners, whispering under her breath. I still see them sometimes. Not them. I have never wanted to see what they are. But I see the corners. Sitting in my own room, pretending to study, my eyes slide up for no reason. The upper left, upper right, above my wardrobe, above the door, the angles where the walls and ceiling meet feel occupied. On bad nights, when the house is quiet and the wind rattles the windows, I hear it again. Soft, irregular scratching above me. A pause. Soft, whispering numbers. When I get brave enough to look, there's never anything there. Except once, I thought I saw fingerprints in the dust along the edge of the ceiling. Small, spread wide. They say if you stare at any corner long enough in the dark, you'll start to see shapes. Your brain making patterns out of nothing. I believe that, but I also believe that sometimes those patterns are making you back. They said she should practice. I think she got very good.